Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, you have week 5 of my Goodreads project. I am filming this 2 days earlier than I normally do because I will not have this particular setup available for me on Sunday because I will be in New York. I also have a fairly pretty busy day that day. I am going to be running my long run in Central Park, super excited about that, and then seeing Hamilton in the afternoon. So I won't really have time to record and edit the videos. So I'm gonna go ahead and update now. And I'm gonna go in age order. So the first category, children's and middle grades. This has not changed. This graphic has not changed at all. I have made progress. I have read Lodestar, which is book 5 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I have book 6, 7, 8 to read prior to getting to book 9, which is on this series. This is probably going to be the category that I finish last because I'm still waiting on books 8 and 9 from the library. The one thought that I have about this is I really appreciate how Shannon Messenger keeps adding all of these layers to the world. I just wonder though if it's going to get too expansive, if some of these are going to double back on each other, or if everything's planned out ahead of time. We shall see as I advance in that series. The category that I made the most advance in is the young adult fantasy. And you will see I am waiting on just one book. That book is Cursed by Marissa Meyer. There's still several weeks on both the audiobook and the ebook and the book. I have holds on all 3 versions to see which might finally come in. So I might not be able to completely finish this category by the time I do my evaluations. In which case, I will make the exceptions for the 3 at the bottom. One significant change that you will see here is I have added a book to the I'm not reading this list, or I'm not reading this category down at the bottom, and that is Kingdom of the Feared. I read Kingdom of the Wicked this week and decided it's fantasy romance, and that's not my genre. I'm not interested in it. I don't feel like reading another book before even getting to this nominee, so I've decided to DNF the series. Kingdom of the Wicked was not bad. It was not great either. It set up with an interesting premise. I really enjoyed how Maniscalco started to open up the story and all the motivations that the characters had. However, we got into the whole, I'm super attracted to this demon that put his finger on the blood of my recently deceased sister and consumed it. Yeah, no. It's fantasy romance is not my thing, and I know that. So I'm not going to torture myself by reading more. The other books that I read this week, the highest of those is The Ballad of Never After, and I did make a change. I put The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea down at number 5. It had been at number 3, and I had been debating between that and Cytonic, but the farther I get separated from The Girl Who Sank Beneath the Sea, I still really enjoy it. It's still definitely a 5 stars. I own it. I'm so glad I own it. But I have more fond thoughts about The Ballad of Never After and how that built up and the tension and the twists. So that's why I made that switch. And I could have just bumped everything down and left The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea up there. But after some thinking, I knew that I enjoyed The Ballad of Never After much more than A Magic Steeped in Poison or Foul Lady Fortune or This Woven Kingdom, all of which tie for me. So that's why I made that shift. The next 2 books that I read, I enjoyed. I can safely say that I have positive thoughts for the top 13 on this list. There are some that are standouts by far, but there are some that were terrible. But thankfully, unlike last year, I think, there aren't that many that were super awful. Only 1 that was really awful for me and 3 that just didn't work. But the other two that I read this week, because my script became unlimited again, are The Sunbearer Trials and All That's Left in the World. I think I would have rated All That's Left in the World higher, except for the romantic bits that got added in towards the end. It's just not for me, and that brought my enjoyment score down, but I had to put it up higher than Belladonna because it surprised me. I thought that I used to like dystopian books, but I realized that I don't. But then this one surprised me with how Brown, the author, handled the dystopian part of it and the way that it felt realistic in what was happening and what the characters could and could not do. And then the Sunbearer Trials, I put that one above All That's Left in the World because the Sunbearer Trials falls more in line with the type of books that I enjoy, and it also was not weighed down by excess romance that I just didn't find enjoyable. Not that the romance was cheesy or poorly done in All That's Left in the World. It's just not my preference. In the Sunbearer Trials, I enjoyed it. I wanted to rate it a lot higher, but it felt more formulaic than I expected. I saw a lot of similarities between the main characters in Cemetery Boys and Sunbearer Trials in their setup, in the fact that they have a spunky female best friend. That part bothered me a little bit. When I saw that setup, I'm like, didn't you do that in your first book? Okay. I did enjoy this book. I did enjoy this one much more than the actual first book that I read of Aidan Thomas's, which was Lost in the Neverwoods. So this is second out of 3 that they have published. I knew the things that were coming, and I think that's what brought my enjoyment down as it did, and why I didn't rate it up with, say, Foul Lady Fortune or This Woven Kingdom. It's not that I didn't like the book. It's in the bottom half, but not because it's a bad book. It's a really good book. I think this might have netted a 4.5 star, but I think it's actually a 4 star from me. So there you have my young adult fantasy and science fiction list. That's where I made the most progress because those were the audiobooks that I had, and I also wanted to try and make as much progress as I could, and those were the shorter audiobooks as well. Next, we'll go to adult fantasy. In adult fantasy, I have crossed only one more off of this list. I am currently reading both Thistlefoot and Kaikei. I'm reading Thistlefoot by a physical book. I'm hoping to finish that tonight, actually, and I'm reading Kaikei by audiobook. I also have the audiobooks of Ordinary Monsters, The World We Make, and that's it. There were 3, and I mentioned Kaikei. I plan to listen to those on the trip, on the way up, because we're taking a train up, and get those finished. And so I would have had more to say about these if I had recorded on Sunday. But again, like I explained, I don't have that much time. So the one book that I have finished this week, because obviously you saw I made much more progress in the young adult fantasy list, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I thought that it would come, if not exactly close to Legends and Lattes and Nettle and Bone. As you can see, they're 3 and 4. They are amazing, and I love cozy fantasy. And I also have seen this book compared to House in the Cerulean Sea, and I read that this year and loved it. Also another 5-star read. But this one just missed the mark entirely. It had a great setup. I loved the premise. I think I would have liked the book if it had been better written, but there was someone else that a booktuber I watched, when they talked about it, they talked about how it felt like there was a lot of telling, not showing. And I felt the same way. And there was a point where something is revealed and Mika, the main character, gets super upset and she leaves. It's like the third act breakup sort of thing, because this is way more of a romance book than a fantasy book. I have no idea why it's on this list. She gets super upset at this thing and literally leaves and abandons everything. And I'm like, wait, what? What are you upset about? I don't understand why you are this upset about it. But the author had to have something to make that third act breakup, and so that the hero could come in and they could have sexy times. And I'm like, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I did, however, put it above The Book Eaters. The Book Eaters is suffering mainly from the fact that I don't read horror and I don't enjoy horror, and there were some what I'll call mechanical issues with it. So I have a feeling that The Very Secret Society of Witches and The Book Eaters are going to remain towards the bottom. I hope they remain towards the bottom because I really want to enjoy my reads with the rest of what I have. I think that with the exception of Stellar Loon on the middle grades list and Cursed on the young adults fiction list, I will have been able to finish all of the books on all 3 of these lists by the time that I check in one more final time to give a reaction and a comparison to Goodreads rankings. That one will probably be a much longer video because I will have at minimum 5 more books to talk about, maybe 6, depending on if I'm able to get a hold of any of these other books. And then I'm going to compare it to Goodreads. So we shall see how that one goes, but thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.